So this is my Coronet Imp Bandsaw. I picked this up as a bit of an eBay bargain find about 6 months ago, and it's been working brilliantly for me. But I thought, having had a look around, there aren't a lot of information about these, and I thought I'd share a little bit about the machines, what to look for if you're looking to buy one, and B, if you're changing the blades, the best way to set them up, and some sort of key information as you go along. And I'll sort of give you a rundown of my machine as I go through. These were originally made by the Coronet Tool Company back just after the First World War in Derby. I can't remember the name of the guy who designed them, but he both designed and ran the company. They produced these solid but fairly simple machines, and I think simple is always sometimes the best way. There's less to go wrong, and they're pretty well built. All the things are aluminium cast, nice solid pieces. There's very little to go wrong with them, nice solid motors. They were designed for the sort of semi-professional to amateur woodworker, and it works on a 3-wheeled system. So if I give you a quick run through of what to look for when you're buying them, I think the best things as well to bear in mind, if you want any more information that you can sit down and look at and read, Bowling Workshops, and I'll put the web address down there later on. They've got some really good information that follows all of the Coronet machines, setup information, really detailed photos, what's there, what should be there, what's missing. The other one is Coronet Woodworking, a guy called Derek Pyatt. He is probably the font and source of all knowledge when it comes to working on the Coronet machines. If he doesn't know it, it's not worth knowing. He carries most of the spares, parts, what's still available. He'll give you all the information you want. He'll give you a more detailed rundown over the phone with you. Any help you need on setting these up and how to use them, he's the man to really go to, and he's the one I spoke to on the phone most recently. He gave me a bit of a rundown, and it's some of that information I'll try and share with you guys as I go through. So if you're looking at buying one, there are several things to look out for. It's well worth actually going to have a look at the machine in question, make sure all the things are there. Because they're old machines, you can't always guarantee that you can get all the parts, so it's worth checking what is and isn't there that you can negotiate. The best things to make sure to check for, first of all, does it have a fence in place? Does it have a motor gauge? Now, mine has got a non-standard fence on it, which is a piece of aluminium cut up, running on a rail, and it can be locked off. It is in the process of being changed. I've got something coming up and I'll show you guys later, but the original system had mountings on the side there with fine adjustment on the ends there, and then you had a mitre fence on there. Other things to check for as well are on the back. So there should be 3 nailed knobs that look like this. They hold the front plate onto the machine, which allows you to get into the machine. Which gives you the inside of the machine. So if I come back a bit, you can see you've got the 3 wheels here, on-off switch down there, and then you've got the head carrier here, and all the adjustments on the back there. All the sawdust tends to collect down here and runs out here, and I suppose the best thing really is to show you how to sort of set them up and run them. Now at the moment my one has got sort of terrible drift on it, so I'm going to change the blade and see if I can collect some of that. I think also my back carry arm there is slightly warped, and I need to look at that and look at fixing that as well. Other things to look for are the centre fills on here. So this one at the moment is a homemade one that someone's made out of a piece of wood. I've actually bought a piece of imperial sized aluminium rod that I'm going to cut down, shape and turn into decent ones, and I can make myself a whole stack of spare ones on there, ready to go in as and when they run out on there. As you can see in a second, I'll show you how bad the blade drift is on here. So you can see there's quite a bit of blade drift on there, so I'm going to change the blade out. I've also got a new guard coming in that will allow me to cater for a certain amount of blade drift as well, but yeah, that's not a straight cut at the moment. So when I got mine, I was missing the mitre gauge, which Derek managed to sort me out with one. He sent me one he had going in the workshop. The other thing that was wrong with mine is both the thrust bearings top and bottom in there were completely seized up. So Derek does carry some spares of those and he can send them out. They're well worth doing. It means you can set the machine up properly. But apart from that, everything else was pretty much there and working. Mine's a bit tired and needs a bit of a TLC and a repaint maybe, and the sticker redoing. But it's a good solid machine. So it's got 3 speeds on the belt. So under here you can change it to a range of different speed settings. You can see under there. So you can do slow speeds, medium and high speeds, depending what blade you're putting in. You can change what materials you're cutting on there. So changing the blade is fairly quick and easy on this. The easiest thing first of all to do is take off any guards on the front of the wheel. As the blade has to come out the front. On the back here are 3 wheels. One of them controls the tilt on the top wheel there, the other one is the tension, and the third one is the lock on here, the locks are all in place. You take the tension off, on there, very easily the blade comes out. So just make sure the machine is switched off, because nobody wants to chop their fingers off. That's the blade off. And the next job before putting everything in is to go around and loosen off all the brass blocks, top and bottom, moving the wheels back as far as you go, and then just checking the wheels are running true, top and bottom. Now when I got mine, I actually had to dismantle and rebuild it. The complete back section there was absolutely chock-a-block of sawdust, and the adjust knob wasn't doing anything. So once it's all cleaned out, it ran incredibly better. So I'm just going to go around quickly without you having to watch and loosen off all the fixings top and bottom. Now the bandsaw blades that you need are 67.5 inches in length, and the ones I've got at the moment, I've got some ones that came with the machine. I've got about 4 or 5 spare blades, Dakin Flathers. They're really good blades. The thing with these machines is to get good blades for them. If you put cheap blades in, they have issues because the blades tend to be quite thin. Any discrepancies on the weld tends to mean they pull to one side or the other and can have alignment issues. One of the best sources, a bit of a plug here, Axminster Tools do some superb blades for the Coronet Imp at 67.5 inches, and they're definitely worth looking at. So if you want an easy source to get your blades from, are not supplied by Axminster, but Axminster Tools definitely do some really good ones, especially their, I think they're called Excalibur blades at the moment, really sharp. We use them at work. I've been really pleased with them, actually, cut super sharp. So I'll get this blade out and then we'll look at putting it on. So the safest way to open a blade, especially when they're coiled like this one is here, is actually just to throw it on the ground and let it expand out on its own. That way your fingers aren't going to get caught on the blades, and then you can pick it up. It's often worth working with gloves on. You can do as well. I tend to not do that, just because I find it easier dexterity wise working my way around the blade. So the next job is to line it up on all 3 wheels. So it doesn't matter at this point which one you do first, you just want to get it roughly onto the machine. Again, making sure the power is off. As the wheel tension's already down, that's not a problem. Everything's loosened off. Just make sure it sits nice and straight between all the right points, like so. And the next tool is to put a small amount of tension back on the blade, and then by hand turn it and see where it sits on the wheel. So if I turn it by hand, you can see the blade should sit and track roughly in the middle. But if you adjust the handle on the back here, that's the small metal one, you can change the pitch at which the wheel sits in. So if you lower the top end in, I turn this by hand, you should see the blade move towards the front, and if you kept it going on that one, it will run off. And if I take some of the slack off, change the pitch to go backwards, and I rotate the wheel again, you should see the blade move backwards. I should be able to take a bit more off that. So the blade should run roughly in the middle of the wheel like that, which then pulls all the other wheels into line. You only tend to track the top wheel. So once you're happy with the tracking on the top wheel, you can then lock it into place. So the next job is to set the guide blocks up, which are these ones either side, top and bottom, and Derek's advice is always to set the ones on the right hand side first of all, and I think he said something like 1/32 of an inch, which works out to about a fag paper's width, or a piece of newspaper if you don't smoke. So as they're already loose already, it's just a case of just gently bringing it in so that it's not pushing against the blade, but you've got about a fag paper's width between them, which I know is roughly about there. And once the ones on the right are set, you can then set the ones on the left. So when you turn the wheel, they shouldn't be touching, it should just move freely through. So I think I'm a little closer than that to one. Once they're set, the next job is just to bring in the thrust bearing at the back. Again, it shouldn't be touching the blade, it should just be enough off so that it turns freely on its own, but as you push the material against it, it starts to turn as it goes. So if you find any of your bushes at the side there are uneven or unworn, you can just grind the sides down, or if you're lucky you can flip them over if the other side is still fresh. So one of the last two things to do is to move the blade lock in place. This is just designed so that if for some reason the blade comes off the machine, it shouldn't come swinging around and come off the machine that you're working on. There. And last but not least is the case of putting on the case, the front cover. So the last thing to do is just test it, make sure it cuts nice and straight. So already that seems to sort out most of the blade drift I've got on there. Just by changing the blade. So some of the best advice Derek gives: put the widest blade on possible, the thickest you can do, best quality blade you can get, and make sure everything's set up right. So make sure the gaps and the blade sets and the bushes are set at the right depths and the thrust bearings are in the right place. The other thing I do as well is make sure that the table is square to the blade as well, so use a tri-square on that just to check it's all nice and level, and that should give you the best cut. So if you're suffering from drift and other bits and bobs, I would have a look at doing those bits first.